Good afternoon, everyone. So, we are now in the second day, session 2 of the Biodiversity Matters webinar series. So, this day we will be talking about protected areas, trends, and updates. But before that, we'd like to look back yesterday to what happened. So, yesterday we talked about biodiversity, more diversity, better society, more variety, better society. So, it was given to us by Sir Godfrey Hakosalem. And we had an interesting amount of questions, and we we'd like to tell you that we are trying to answer most of the questions. We will email it back to you as soon as we can, and we'd like to thank you for the reviews, for the all overwhelming reviews, suggestions, and comments that you've given to us. So today, show a brief introduction to our speaker. He's a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Biology in Velas College in Cebu City with a degree in Environment and Natural Resources Management at Open University of the University of the Philippines. So he started his career as a biologist in DNR. His early years involved wildlife field research, particularly in the Visayas region, including the islands of Masbate, Cebu, and Siquijor Islands. From 2009 to 2015, he was the Protected Area Superintendent of Ulango Island Wildlife Sanctuary in Cebu. This is where he furnished his knowledge in protected areas in the Philippines, and he has been in the DNR for more than a decade now and continuing really strong. So during his term as PASU, it was the time that the People's Organization in Olango Island, it was reorganized into a functional and successful organization, as well as updated the capacity of the Nature Center in OIWS. Now he is currently working as a Development Management Officer 2 of the Conservation Development Division of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Region 7 in Cebu City. So personally, I've been working with him since 2014 up to now. We've conducted several surveys and training in Cebu and particularly in Olango. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker for today that will talk about protected areas, an interesting topic in these difficult times. Trends and updates, Mr. Reginaldo G. Bueno.
Today, I'll be sharing to you some updates on protected areas. Trends and updates on protected areas. My presentation would be to present the updates of the different protected areas in the Philippines since 1992, its benefits, accomplishments, and challenges, and its milestones. As we can see, in 1992, during the Earth Summit, biodiversity in the Philippines obtained more interest after the country was one of the signatories of this convention on biological diversity in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and later formed the Philippine Council for Sustainable Development. And it is also in this year that the National Integrated Protected Areas System Act, or the Republic Act of 1992, Republic Act 7586 of 1992 was enacted. This huh? Burn out? Hello? Hello?
Bawa na.
Huh?
Tawag siya. Pahulsa lang daw. Tap lang sa daw ka kay. Wa man sad ko na nakita. Ay, nga good.
Hello? Oh. Oh. Oh, sige. Sige.
Anya?
Balik, so good. Back to normal.
Buhat rata.
Sige.
Padayon lang.
Tinawag ng girlfriend.
Hindi lagi mo. Sino na ka?
Nag-join ko.
Video. Na ko.
Hello to everyone who's listening, who's attending. So sorry for that short interruption. There was a unexpected blackout here in our area, but we're now live, and our speaker is also live. So I will not turn over you to our speaker, Sir Reginaldo Bueno.
Okay. Good day again, and sorry for that interruption. We will now proceed to my topic, protected areas, trends, and updates. So this afternoon, I will present to you some data on the trends and updates of protected areas in the Philippines, its benefits, accomplishments, challenges, and milestones. Biodiversity in the Philippines starts to obtain interest during this time, 1992, when the country was one of the signatories of the Earth Summit of the Convention on Biological Diversity in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It is also during this time that the Philippines created the Philippine Council for Sustainable Development to preliminary review and ensure the implementation of the Philippine commitments during this summit, and to provide guidance for the policy reforms, programs, and the new legislation address in continuing an emerging environment for sustainable development. It was also this time, in 1992, that Republic Act 7586, or otherwise known as the National Integrated Protected Areas System Act, was enacted by law. The NIPAS Act of 1992 provides the legal framework for the establishment and management of protected areas in the Philippines. The NIPAS plays a vital role in the implementing of some major approaches on the Philippine strategies for the sustainable development, which is biodiversity conservation. The policy of the NIPAS declaration leads to maintain the ecological process and life support system of protected areas, preserve genetic diversity, ensure sustainable use of resources, and maintain the natural conditions of these areas in areas as possible. And these protected areas is by classification of national park based on our Philippine Constitution. These are some legislations from 1992 to the present that affects the management of our protected areas. So I will run through all this. Some of these laws overlaps functions of other government institutions in their respective management. Inclusion of these other components such as ecotourism, wildlife resource conservation, the laws over our indigenous people, and clean water. So these are the other laws and provisions that affects the or benefits or affects the protected areas or the NIPAS. And it is in 2008 that the NIPAS Act is enacted. So let's go first to classification, the scope of coverage of these protected areas. The NIPAS encompasses identified protected areas, whether it is terrestrial, wetland, or marine. However, before the protected area is proclaimed, a protected area suitability assessment will be conducted. The PASA, or the Protected Area Suitability Assessment, is a rapid screening and evaluation of the proposed protected areas to determine its suitability and establish each protected area category. So the PASA focus on these 5 aspects: uniqueness, naturalness, abundance, vulnerability, and irreplaceability. So these are the categories of protected areas. Number 1, the natural biotic area. These areas are set aside in a way to allow the way of life of the societies living in harmony with nature or environment and adapt to modern technology at their place. So this is one example located at Camarines Norte, the Abasig Matugdon Mananap Natural Biotic Area. Protected landscape and seascape. Protected landscape and seascape are large areas with national significance and characterized by harmonious interaction of man and land, which provides opportunities of public enjoyment through recreation and tourism within the normal lifestyle and economic activity of these areas. My example here is located here in Cebu and in the province of Negros, Central Cebu Protected Landscape. This is one of the largest terrestrial protected area in Region 7. It is composed of 3 watersheds and 2 national parks. And of course, the Tanyon Strait Protected Seascape, the largest marine protected area in the Philippines, which comprises of 2 regions, 3 provinces, and 42 cities. It covers around 518,000 hectares. And Tanyon Strait Protected Seascape is also the habitat of 14 species of cetaceans. Natural monument. Natural monument are small areas focused on protection of small features to protect and preserve its natural significant feature on account of special interest. Like in this picture, this is Chocolate Hills Natural Monument in Bohol. You can never find another Chocolate Hills in the country, but only here in Bohol. So this is recognized internationally and located in the province of Bohol. Wildlife sanctuaries. There are many wildlife sanctuaries in the country. This is just one. Wildlife sanctuaries are areas which assume natural conditions necessary to protect nationally significant species, group of species, biotic communities, or physical features of the environment where they may be require specific human manipulations or perpetuations. In this photo, this is Olango Island Wildlife Sanctuary, the first wetland of international importance in the Philippines, and a key biodiversity area and an important bird area. And it hosts 25,000 shorebirds that flies along the East Asian Austronesian Highway. National parks. National parks are large area not materially altered by humans. With extractive resource uses are not allowed and maintained to protect outstanding natural and scenic areas of national or international significance for scientific and recreational or educational purposes. Valencia Twin Lakes here in the picture, located in Negros Occidental, is one of the most well-managed protected areas, natural parks in the Philippines. And maybe this is the first protected area to conduct a simultaneous BMS, biodiversity monitoring system, to monitor the population of the Tarik-Tik hornbill in Valencia Twin Lakes. Resource reserves. Resource reserves is an extensive or isolated or inhabited area normally with difficult access, designated to some of such to protect natural resources of the area for future use and prevent to contain development activities that could affect the resources, pending for the establishment of objectives which are based upon appropriate knowledge. So this is in Siocon Resource Reserve. And strict nature reserve, the last category, is an area possessing some outstanding ecosystem features or species of flora and fauna of national and scientific importance, maintained to protect and maintain to protect nature and maintain processes in an undisturbed state in order to have ecologically representative examples of natural environment. Here is the famous Mount Makiling Forest Reserve. So what is now the status of the protected areas? Protected areas under NIPAS has a total of 240, covering 5.45 million hectares. And 70 of these NIPAS protected areas are marine, and 170 of them are terrestrial, covering a total area of 5.45 million hectares. So the current status of the number of protected areas prior the now legislated 11 NIPAS, we have 240 protected areas. But based on the NIPAS Act of 1992, only 13 are with legislation. As for the forest cover in protected areas, which is important also in biodiversity, in the wildlife that thrive in the forest, 2.7 million hectares of this forest, or 39% of the remaining 6.8 million hectares of forest in the Philippines, are located in protected areas. And around 70% of the remaining primary forests are located in protected areas. So, protected areas and key biodiversity areas. Key biodiversity areas in the Philippines, we have identified, or we have 228 key biodiversity areas. And these key biodiversity areas are also located in protected areas, or the protected areas are located in key biodiversity areas. Based on NIPAS, around 127 NIPAS areas are also key biodiversity areas. 101 of the key biodiversity areas are not protected under NIPAS, but rather they are protected. It's either the non-government organizations, LGUs, other forms of protection. And 113 NIPAS areas are also not within KBA areas. So the overlapping between protected areas and KBAs, or the NIPAS areas that are in KBAs, is around 3.8 million hectares. So what are other strategies for protected area management that leads to biodiversity conservation? This is ecotourism. Ecotourism is promoted by the Department of Tourism, and together with DNR as co-chair of this ecotourism in the Philippines, the National Ecotourism Strategy and Action Plan has been drafted and implemented, which the protected areas in the country are preparing for the ecotourism activities or ecotourism management plans for its protected areas that are implementing ecotourism. So ecotourism and protected areas, these are one of the many examples. The ecotourism that promotes educational awareness to the people, to the visitors. It also promotes the local delicacies of the people of the area, local culture, and of course, this will not happen without the participation of the local community. In Olango Island Wildlife Sanctuary, the association there, Olango Island Ecotour Association, was reorganized and became partner. They were formerly violators in the protected area, and gladly they became the protector and partner in biodiversity conservation in protected area. And they have gained awards as partners for biodiversity conservation and promotion of ecotourism in Olango Island. Also in Mahagna Volcano Lake Natural Park, one of the famous ecotourism sites in Burauen, Leyte. Ecotourism in Mahagnao Volcano Natural Park is a collaborative effort of DNR, the NGOs, the LGUs, the academy, and the people's organization. And biodiversity in the area, biodiversity and ecotourism mutually supported by each other in this area. Bulusan, Sayaw Twin Lakes Natural Park also implement ecotourism activities with the active participation of the partners, the people organization in ecotourism, as well as the protection of the protected area. So right now, Balinsasayao Twin Lake Natural Park is self-sustaining protected area where they have their income from the fees of ecotourism and rentals of their ecotourism products and support from the local government units. Other services or ecosystem services that protected area has provided. Provisioning, these are the ecosystem services because protected areas can give food, fresh water, fiber, or any form that can provide the community or the people. Regulating also, regulation on climate change, cultural, we have the different aesthetic value, educational cultures of protected areas, and of course supporting on the functions of the biodiversity and the nutrients of the forest to support the different wildlife or life cycle within protected area. And also protected area gain a support, protected area also have good, protected areas also have they have we all protected areas have can support the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. So protected areas in climate action, our protected areas can mitigate or slow the impacts of climate change, life below water, and life on land. These are the different marine and terrestrial protected areas. Of course, partnerships or other goals with partnership of our partners in the management and management of our protected areas. So in the management of protected areas, we have a tool in order to monitor and to assess whether our protected areas for a period of time is effectively managed. And this is the management effectiveness tracking tool. This is the tool used to assess the management effectiveness in protected areas. So this is the one. This is the tool, and this is the elements to be considered when conducting the assessment. And some of the protected areas already conducted the management enhancement tracking tool in 2013, and after 5 years, 2017, to see to it if they have improvement or they have decline or they have same their assessment. Some of the results of protected areas in Region 7. So some of them gain a good score, increases, some of them decreases, and some of them maintain. Challenges in every endeavor, we have challenges, especially in protected areas. So for many years of implementation, there are challenges in the harmonization of existing laws and legislation, especially in the ancestral domain, the fisheries code, in marine protected areas, land use issues. There are private lands, titled lands within protected areas, protected area management improvements, and of course the threats in protected areas and its biodiversity. It's all same: pollution, invasive alien species, climate change, habitat loss, overexploitation, all the challenges. And the government responds in order to update or upgrade the existing NIPAs and have this bill, have this Republic Act, the law, the Republic Act 11038, or the Expanded National Integrated Protected Area System of 2018. So this, we have here salient features of this act. I'll just round on this in this declaration of policy. Right now, this act recognizes other conservation areas and management regimes being implemented other than the within protected area, like managed by the local government units, local conservation areas, by the local communities, the indigenous people in their respective indigenous lands, in their CADS lands. And one of example of this is this Negros Occidental Coastal Wetland Conservation Area. This is now a Ramsar site in Negros, and this is a local conservation area. So in the expanded NIPAS, 94 protected areas is classified additional for aside from the 13 that has the additional 94 protected areas are classified under national parks, and the other remaining is initial components, the one that is not included. And these protected areas is surveyed with NAMRIA certification for its boundaries and technical descriptions. So these are the 94 additional legislated protected areas distributed throughout the three regions, 46 in Luzon, 28 in Mindanao, in Visayas, and 20 in 20 in Visayas and 28 in Mindanao. Sorry. Total, these protected areas has a total of 3.09 million hectares of coverage. So if there are additional protected areas to be identified, it will go to the process again in identification. In this Act, 11038, a buffer zone can be established, and private owners of titled lots within are required to have a design of development in consideration with the Protected Area Management Plan. The PAMBI, or the Protected Area Management Board, the policy-making body of the protected areas, is now modified with the expansion of its members, which include the additional members like the regional directors of the NEDA, DA, DOST, National Defense, and district representative in the region. So this, of the 94 protected areas, the management plan should be formulated within a year, and it should be harmonized with other local plans, and a long-term framework should be done as a preparation for its annual operation. This is for the budget to support the operation of the protected area. And in the NIPAS, the administration and management of the system still by DNR through the Biodiversity Management Bureau. One new feature of the NIPAS is the creation of the Protected Area Management Office. This is headed by the PASU, and a sufficient number of staffs for the operation of the protected area. So each protected area has its own now personnel to manage, to manage the protected area, making it easy for them, for the management of it. Projects within and outside the scope of the management plan, as long as it is implemented within protected area, should undergo EIA or environmental impact assessment. Only renewable energy is allowed for energy sources within protected area, but still this project shall undergo EIA and adopt reduced impact technology. Our ancestral domain, lands or customary rights of our indigenous communities shall be respected and recognized. And these IPs are the one should be responsible to govern and develop in the respective territories with their knowledge, indigenous knowledge system and practice. So, considering that the protected area have ecotourism and gains integrated protected area fund or the IPAF, it is in this INEPAS that the retention of the 75% income should be clarified and utilization of the 25% should be deposited to the general fund for financing of projects of other protected areas that have no income. It is also stipulated in the INEPAS that LGUs and communities within PA will be respected and continue to occupy their townships and town centers and exercise their functions. And all private rights, property shall be protected and also be respected. Units in the PA shall participate as members of the PAMBI, and they shall continue to collect their taxes, provided that they shall not impose property tax on properties owned by the government. Also, the LGUs within PA shall align their plans in the PA manner. It's also stipulated in the INAIPAS a wider coverage of prohibited acts and higher penalties. And it is emphasized that administrative or criminal liabilities of the LGUs, if they fail to enforce and implement provisions of the INAIPAS. So tax exemptions provided by in accordance with the National Integrated Revenue Code. So as of now, together with the NIPAS of 1992 and the INAIPAS of 2018, the number of legislated protected areas is now 107. These are the development activities that are now ongoing of the different protected areas in the country. So this is it. This is the last slide of my presentation, and the next slide would be protected areas for a protected future. This is a continuing webinar for protected areas, which will be on June 22 again, which will now feature the different protected areas under the INAIPAS. So the 94 protected areas will have time to present, and on June 22, this will be hosted by Congresswoman Lauren, and 6 protected areas will be presenting, and you are invited to again watch this talk. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. And for that, thank you very much.
Sir Reggie, thank you for that presentation. It is actually an interesting topic to know what's happening, the updates on ways to move forward on our protected areas, and especially with the recent Republic Act 11038, which is the expanded NIPAS Act in 2018, like you said, which added 94 new legislated protected areas in the country. So we have an interesting flow of questions thrown to us from the Facebook Live feed. And I'm going to search. Here's an interesting question from, this is from, Kyra Estorninos Aldaba. So I'll read it for you, sir. Here's the question.
Yeah.
What are the protocols that are needed to be followed if one wants to conduct research study within a protected area?
Okay. Research in protected areas. First, you have to get a gratuitous permit from DNR. But before you can get that, you should present your paper or your methodology to the Protected Area Management Board. Because every protected area, the Protected Area Management Board will review projects, will review applications on research on protected areas. And it will be forwarded to DNR for processing of the gratuitous permit in our licensing division. So what you will do to get your research is present it to the PAMB, apply for gratuitous permit.
Okay, so to sum up that, sir, so basically, when you want to do research in a protected area, you present it to the Protected Area Management Board, which usually conducts their meeting quarterly, right?
Quarterly.
And then the resolution will be created, and then but you need your proposal for that in a cover letter to be sent to the regional office, just
Yes,
to make it clear.
you need the proposal for that and submit to the regional office. Then the regional office will forward it to the protected area where your research will be conducted, and you will be contacted also with all the other requirements in order for you to get the gratuitous permit.
Okay, so that's it for the protected area. How about, sir, a follow-up questions, because there are areas where people do research that are outside of the protected area. So is the process different when they do it on a not protected area?
When you are your research is not in a protected area, you will not go into the PAMB because there's no PAMB in the outside the protected area. Maybe you go to the local government unit, but still you still have to apply for a gratuitous permit in DNR.
Okay, so whichever case, may it be in a protected area or a non-protected area, gratuitous permit is required, but on different processes for those two different
processes.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good reminder to anyone who would like to who's planning or conducting research on protected areas or not protected areas, that we need to have a gratuitous permit to make our research legal. So thank you for that question. So here's another question, Sir Raji.
Yeah.
This is from Christian Lucanias. So the question is, what will happen to the non-legislated areas? How do we ensure its protection?
Okay. What will happen on the non-legislated protected areas?
Yes.
So, if it is already within the NEPAs or those protected areas that are proclaimed, but there is no legislation, they will still be part of the system. So, as with my last slides, they will prepare documents that leads them to legislation. For initial components that are identified with no laws yet, no presidential proclamation, they are preparing documents such as protected area suitability assessment, the survey of occupants, pertinent documents for them to be included in the NIPAS. But still, they are still part of the system of the initial component of protected areas. For other areas, like the local conservation areas, which are not protected under NIPAS, they are also protected by non-government organizations, other institutions, local government units that have also a mandate towards conservation of the biodiversity and in our locality.
Okay, sir, thank you. So basically, those are the steps for those remaining for those remaining areas that are not legislated yet by law to be put to make it a much stronger na law na protected area. So
Yes. But they are still recognized as part of the system.
yes, okay. So actually, it's a big step, the Republic Act 11038. So just from, was it 13, sir? 13 in
13.
1992.
From 1992, only 13 legislated protected areas.
And now we're at about 107, right?
7 protected areas.
107. So that's a big step towards that. But there are still areas that needed to be legislated. So that's one of the targets, probably.
Yeah, we don't stop there. We don't stop there. We have partners. We have partners. We are all partners towards biodiversity conservation.
Yes, we are all partners towards biodiversity conservation. So thank you. Moving on to a next question. So this is all the way from New Zealand, from Dr. Peter Pelser. So we'd like to do a shout out to Dr. Peter Pelser. So this is the question. Can you give an example of a terrestrial protected area that has had very good outcomes, including evidence of increases in forest regeneration and biodiversity? What are the key features that determined its success?
Okay. I can maybe cite one example, but I cannot really have the numbers, no? Because we still have to gather the data. Though we have the data on the biodiversity monitoring system in every protected area, but what I can tell you is we are proud that in our region lang, in our region, Region 7, we can recommend Balinsasayao Twin Lakes Natural Park as one of the effectively managed protected areas. Since the records in this of the endangered Tarik-Tik hornbill way back 2004, where it's so hard to find this hornbill in the forest when they do the biodiversity monitoring, and right now you can find 50 50 of them or more in the forest. That's one good indicator that the forests are regenerating, the wildlife are propagating. There are more wildlife, so meaning their habitat is good and they are not exploited. So it's one of the indicators. But in terms of the one he asked on the how much increase in the forest cover, I have no data yet on that. But eventually, I know it increases, considering that the wildlife are also increasing in number.
Okay, so thank you, Sir Reggie. So so your example is Balinsasayao Twin Lakes Natural Park. So it's to everyone, it's found in the island of Negros,
Yes.
in Region 7, which is part of your jurisdiction, Sir Reggie,
Yes, of course.
on where you are. So I was a witness to that. Like Sir Reggie said in his presentation, it was one of the sites in Negros where the synchronized biomonitoring system was conducted, where the Tarik-Tik hornbill was recorded. And that's an interesting fact, where in early 2000s there were few Tarik-Tik hornbills recorded, and now, at least at most you'll be lucky if at most you'll have 50 in a flock of Tarik-Tik hornbills. So, and you also said, sir, in Balinsasayao, that it's a very interesting platform for conservation, because the people's organization are heavily involved, the LGU as well as the DNR, and they're working well. So I think that's a very good example for.
Yes, that's a good example. the people's organization in Valencia Twin Lakes, they're just like DNR. They are in the front line in
Yeah.
the protection and in the ecotourism development of Valencia Twin Lakes. But with the support, of course, of the local government units in Sibugan and in Negros.
Okay, so the LGUs too. So thank you, Sir Reggie. So our next question. So this is from Sir Noelito Tuble. So the question is, how do we manage encroachers such as privately owned infrastructures or probably tourism sites or private businesses, which is rampant to some protected areas in our country?
Infrastructures. Okay. Did he mention existing or not yet?
Existing
Existing.
ones are already there.
Ones that are already there. There, in our protected area, there is what we call the management zones.
Mhm.
Strict protection zone and the multiple use zone. So if this infrastructures is located within the multiple use zone and the development abides with the management plans, so they will be considered as to their development within uh, the management zone, the multiple use zone. However, they have to apply for certain tenurial instrument, the special agreement in protected area, to have their development legal in that portion of the protected area. And based on the ENIPAS, they should be conducting the EIA or the environmental impact assessment. But for those structures that are within strict protection zone, which is really prohibited, it will be acted by the department or the PAMB to have them removed in the strict protection zone based on the ENIPAS. But in the multiple use zone, developments are allowed. That's where some other also the townships, the local government, or for large protected areas that have LGUs inside, the developments are within the multiple use zone.
Okay, so thank
So
you for that.
the ENIPAS recognizes it, the existing infrastructures within PE, the local government units within PE, and they are designated in the multiple use zone area, zone management zone.
Okay, so thank you for that answer, sir. So actually, that's a very touchy but interesting issue.
Of
I think
course.
needs to be tackled on a lot, or probably in a lot of areas in the
Mhm.
country.
Mhm.
Diba? So it was here, sir. One of the questions that as I was actually thinking to, which is actually the same one on Facebook. So, sir, what's the effect of this general pandemic situation to the management of the protected area for your case who's actually involved in protected areas?
Oh, for the environment, the environment now is relaxed and rested from the pollutions and stress from us, from human. In terms of protected areas, we have able bodies naman in, for example, the people's organization that are within protected areas, they are helping us. And because people do not go out due to the COVID-19, there we also have no activities within protected areas. Or some of the activities that are targeted for this year has been cut off to support for the COVID-19. Budgets were trimmed down to support the pandemic. So, but nevertheless, we have skeletal force, skeletal personnel that are in our protected areas. So with strong collaboration with our partners, we still manage to have a good protection and management of our protected areas right now, even though we are in the pandemic. That it's just that we in the city cannot go out and go to the field because especially right now here in Cebu City, we are in EQC, and mostly people are afraid to go out due to the pandemic. Protected areas are still protected in a way.
Okay, so generally, I think everyone has been affected with this, the
Yes.
limitations to what we can do, to where we can go, but uh, there are things that are continually done for that.
Of course.
So I have another question. This
Yes.
is from a Cebuano, I
Oh,
believe.
Kuno.
This is from Jake Chi.
Mhm.
So the question is, how is the lack of connectivity between protected areas being addressed in the forest of Cebu and the whole central Visayas region? What is DNR doing regarding this case?
What is the lack of
Uh, how is the lack of connectivity between protected areas being addressed in the forest of Cebu and the whole central Visayas region?
is there a lack of connectivity in the PH here in Region 7? Uh, Connectivity on
Connect, uh, Connectivity. Let me read that for you again, sir.
okay.
So how is the lack of connectivity between protected areas being addressed in the forest of Cebu and the whole central Visayas region? Uh, for example, Black Shama, like the patches of forest. Because to everyone who's watching, the forest of Cebu is not like the ones you can imagine that's 1,000 of hectares. That's one whole stretch of forest. So in Cebu, there's patches of forest, and then where the species are found, and then between them are agricultural or developed areas. So probably the question is referring to that, sir. So
Okay.
the corridors.
The corridors of this of important species in Cebu or the forests. So we have to admit that it is just existing here in Cebu, that we are only have patches of forest. But fortunately, though our protected area is only located in central Cebu, where a small patch of forest is located, where endemic species or vulnerable species are still located. But other patches of forest in Cebu, I believe they are also considered protected, and with coordination or with protection under local government units, just like in the Nugas Alcoy regions, that southern range of Cebu, which are not a protected area, but have protection due to the local government units, the non-government organizations, in which we are also in collaboration with DNR in all aspects. One example of this one is the the Siloy Watch, no? The Siloy Watch that we conducted. It is not only in the protected area, but also in other patches of forest in Cebu. So the collection of data of these areas are collated, and the report is province-wide of the Black Shama. So I can say that uh, we are working on connectivity of the forests, of the different habitats of our wildlife or the forest ecosystems in Region 7. And We just still have to work more. And actually, we have drafted also the provincial biodiversity action plan
Mhm.
in Cebu.
In
Just
ISAP.
like in Negros, we have already, and Cebu it's to be finalized. So it is in that plan not only protected areas but all the remaining forest patches in the province of Cebu. And hopefully it would be implemented. The activities or the programs in that plan will be implemented.
Thank you, Sir Raji. So we have a lot of work to do. Yeah.
And
Well,
in
yeah, that's actually interesting. Developing corridors. It's not just about tree planting. So there's a lot of things that needed to be done in order to patch those forests up and link them together to provide corridors uh, to our biodiversity. So, Sir Reggie, you've
yes,
been working with communities. You have experience in Olango Island Wildlife Sanctuary and other areas. It was during your term where they were reorganized and developed further, strengthening their capacity on how to manage the area. So there's one question here from Eugene Quijano.
mm,
The question is, how do you empower local communities that live in places established as protected areas? So it would be good to have uh, your mindset on that, your experience from that.
okay. As experience, you join them. You
Mhm.
join them. It's not about giving them what they want and you are not part of them. And if you are part of them, it's easy to organize. It's easy to make them empower them towards what we wanted to do, especially on biodiversity conservation. And in the way, joining them, they will know your real purpose and they will know who you are and your projects. And at the same time, if they are violators, if they are poachers or hunters, they will have the conscience not to do so. And in time, as you gave them support and the government gave them support and other organizations, they will learn and they will be empowered and uh, they will gain your trust, and then eventually they will be now your partners and they will be the one to protect the protected area for you as their own because they are there, they are living in the protected area and not you. So you should be one with them, no, be one with them. And what happened in Olango Island, this community are the illegal poachers, illegal cutters.
Mhm.
And when we introduce ecotourism, we have to live in the island, join them in their activities, and but you have to support. So what we do is we support trainings, capacity buildings, budget to give them the facilities, the equipments, and then now they're on their own. They know how to seek trainings. They go to DOLE, to DOT, to other agencies for trainings, and they are the one that are empowering now themselves. So it's just us to start and be with them, to guide them lang yun, to guide them, the community, and to make sure that they understand what we are, what's the purpose of our endeavors, and what's our ultimate goal, and they are part of it, just like that.
Thank you, sir. So yes, it's about actually being in the field, engaging with the people who are involved with conservation.
Yes.
So basically, we can put it in two words, probably engaging communities, which will actually be our topic for session 3 for tomorrow. So you guys watch out for that. And since it's past 4, we can accommodate one more question. So, Sir Raji, here is the question.
Yeah.
So
One
this is
more.
from David John Morandarte. So thank you, David, for the question. So the question is, our strict protection reserve also contain SPZ and MUZ? Probably this is for clarification para
Okay.
can be expounded
Oh
for.
no, strict nature reserve. There's no MUZ or
Hmm.
strict SPZ. It's only SPZ because it's used for educational, for research purposes, or for preserving the what is within that reserve for future. So there is no zoning in that. There's only one zoning there. It's strict protection.
It's only strict protection zone. So
Yeah,
no MUZ
no
for
MUZ.
future reserves. So that's very clear. And yes, so that's the last question for today's session, session 2, day 2 of the Biodiversity Matters webinar series. So before we end, sir, do you have any last comments or message to the people who's listening?
Yeah, for the people who are listening, I hope you gain or have I share something for this afternoon. And if it lacks, you will continue this tomorrow or other webinars. And if you want more on protected areas, join next week for the protected areas for our future with Congresswoman Lauren Regarda and 6 protected areas, newly legislated protected areas in the country. To know more specifically in particular protected area, what is in that protected area. And as I always mention in today about Balinsasayao Twin Lakes, it will be their show next week also. So if you want, you can tune in. And thank you very much for attending this webinar.
Thank you too, sir. So again, that's June 22 next week. If you want to learn more about protected areas, particularly the new ENIPAS, and still, I would like to plug this for next week. This is a webinar series. This is from DNR San Robago City in Negros. The title is Forestry Matters. It's a teleconference and lecture. And then it will be on their San Robago City page. You can check it on Facebook. It will be on June 24 at 9 a.m. So before we end this, we'd like to thank you to everyone who's here attending us, for joining us since yesterday and today. But it's a 5-day webinar series, so it's until Saturday. Tomorrow we'll be engaging with communities. And then please, if you have questions, you can, if you have more questions about protected areas, you can send it to us and we will compile it and we will forward it to our resource person. And I know we have concerns for the presentation. You might be wanting a copy of it. So we'll be furnishing a copy of that in PDF form, and we will post details on where to get the presentation. And lastly, we would really appreciate if you please evaluate this webinar series for today. You can find the sheet in our PBCFI page. And to everyone who haven't liked PBCFI page yet, please share and please like our page. So I'm your moderator for today, Andros Chirintar. And thank you again, Sir Reginald Bueno. And everyone who's listening, mayong hapon, thank you, good afternoon.